The stale air of courtroom 3B hung heavy, thick with the scent of old paper, cheap disinfectant, and unspoken anxieties. Marcus Mack, Washington, sat slumped at the defense table, a shadow of a man swallowed by a threadbare suit jacket several sizes too large, likely fish from charity bin. His dark skin was ashy, stretched taut over sharp cheekbones, and his eyes, once bright with the desert sun of Fallujah, were now dull, fixed on the scarred surface of the table as if searching for an escape route only he could see. He was 42 but looked 60, homeless, a veteran, and on trial for aggravated trespassing and resisting arrest. His public defender, Sarah Chun, a young woman barely out of law school, her idealism already fraying at the edges, shuffled her papers with a sigh. She'd tried. God, had she tried. She'd presented his service record: U.S. Marine Corps, 2 tours in Iraq, Purple Heart, Bronze Star. She'd spoken of PTSD, of a system that had chewed him up and spat him out, of a society that lauded its heroes in parades but forgot them on the streets. The prosecutor, a portly man named Henderson with a voice like gravel, had been unmoved. "Your Honor," he'd boomed, "while we respect Mr. Washington's past service, the fact remains he was found illegally occupying private property, a condemned warehouse, and became aggressive when officers attempted to remove him. The law is the law." Mack hadn't been aggressive. He'd been terrified. The sudden shouts, the flashlights in his eyes, it had thrown him back to a night raid outside Ramadi. The muzzle flashes, the screams. He'd reacted, not attacked. But in the sterile language of the police report, it was resisting arrest. Sarah had called a character witness, a fellow shelter occupant who'd mumbled about Mack being quiet and keeping to himself. It hadn't been enough. The judge, a stern-faced woman named Eleanor Vance, listened impassively. Sarah felt the familiar chill of impending failure. Mack would likely get 60 days, maybe 90. Enough time to lose what little he had left, his spot under the bridge, the fragile trust of a few other homeless vets who looked out for each other. Henderson was making his closing argument, his voice a relentless drone, painting Mack as a public nuisance, a drain on resources. And so, the people asked for a verdict that upholds the sanctity of private property and the authority of our law enforcement officers. Mack closed his eyes. He wasn't listening anymore. He was back in a Humvee, the Iraqi heat baking through the metal, the metallic tang of fear and cordite in his nostrils. Sergeant Miller was beside him, grinning, saying something about his girl back home. Then the world exploded. The IED. Miller gone. Mack had pulled 3 others out, his own leg a bloody mess. That's where the shrapnel for the Purple Heart came from. That's where the nightmares were born. A subtle shift in the courtroom atmosphere pricked at Sarah's awareness. A murmur from the gallery, a rustle of movement near the entrance. She risked a glance back, annoyed at the interruption. Henderson paused, frowning. Judge Vance looked up, her eyebrows raised. Standing in the doorway, framed by the cheap wood, was a figure so out of place he seemed to have materialized from another dimension. He was tall, ramrod straight, his Marine Corps dress blues impeccable, the rows of ribbons on his chest a vibrant testament to a lifetime of service. Gold stars glittered on his shoulders. A lieutenant general. His face was weathered, etched with lines of command and quiet authority, his silver-gray hair cut with military precision. He surveyed the courtroom for a moment, his gaze sweeping over the prosecutor, the judge, and then settling on the defense table. The courtroom had fallen utterly silent. Even the hum of the ancient HVAC system seemed to hold its breath. The general took a deliberate step forward, then another. His polished shoes made no sound on the worn linoleum. He didn't look at anyone but Mack. Mack, lost in his reverie of smoke and screams, slowly became aware of the unnatural stillness. He opened his eyes, blinking against the courtroom's dim light. He saw Sarah staring, mouth agape, toward the back. He turned, slowly, painfully, his neck stiff. His eyes met the general's. For a heartbeat, Mack's face was blank, uncomprehending. Then, a flicker, a spark deep within those haunted eyes. His spine, so long accustomed to the slump of despair, seemed to straighten by an almost imperceptible degree. The general said nothing. He simply continued his unhurried, dignified advance, passing the gallery, then the prosecutor's table. He stopped directly in front of the bar, separating the well from the gallery, no more than 10 feet from Marcus Washington. And then, in the profound silence of courtroom 3B, Lieutenant General Alastair Finch, United States Marine Corps, brought his right hand up in a salute. It was not a casual gesture. It was crisp, precise, textbook. A salute of profound respect. A salute from one Marine to another. His eyes, unwavering, remained locked on Mac. Mac stared. The fog of years, of trauma, of hunger and cold, seemed to peel away. His breath hitched. His hands, calloused and trembling slightly, twitched at his sides. The oversized suit jacket felt suddenly constricting. He was back on the parade ground, a young recruit, full of fire and pride. He was in dress blues himself, accepting a medal, his brothers beside him. Slowly, almost agonizingly, as if dredging the movement from the deepest well of muscle memory and forgotten dignity, Marcus Mac Washington pushed himself straighter in his chair. His shoulders squared. He lifted his chin, and with a tremor that shook his entire frame, he raised his right hand to his temple, his fingers aligning as best they could. He returned the salute. Tears welled in Mac's eyes, tracing paths down his weathered cheeks, dropping onto the faded lapel of the borrowed jacket. They weren't tears of sadness, or even entirely of relief. They were tears of recognition. Someone saw him. Not the homeless man, not the defendant, but the Marine. The general held his salute for a long, unwavering moment, then brought his hand down with the same sharp precision. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He simply stood there, a silent, powerful testament. The silence in the courtroom stretched, taut and electric. Judge Vance, a woman known for her iron composure, blinked several times. Her gaze shifted from the general to Mac and back again. A flicker of something unreadable crossed her face. Understanding? Respect? Perhaps even a touch of shame for the institution she represented. Prosecutor Henderson looked flustered, his jowly face slightly paler. His carefully constructed narrative of Mac as a societal menace had just been torpedoed by 4 stars and a galaxy of ribbons. How could he argue that this man, saluted with such solemn reverence by a high-ranking officer, was merely a vagrant? Sarah Chun felt a lump in her throat. She'd fought with legal arguments, with appeals to empathy. But this was something else entirely. This was a language older than law books, a bond forged in fire and sacrifice. Finally, Judge Vance cleared her throat. Her voice, when she spoke, was softer than usual. "General Finch, is it?" she asked, though the nameplates on his uniform were clearly visible. The general inclined his head slightly. "It is, Your Honor." His voice was deep, resonant, carrying easily through the still room. "Are you here in some official capacity regarding this case?" Judge Vance inquired, though the answer seemed obvious. "I'm here as a United States Marine, Your Honor," General Finch stated simply. "I am here because Corporal Marcus Washington is one of our own, and the Marine Corps does not abandon its own." Corporal, not Mr. Washington, not the defendant. Corporal Marcus Washington. Mac flinched almost imperceptibly at the rank, the one he'd held with such pride. "I see," Judge Vance said. She looked down at her notes, then back at Mac, whose hand had slowly dropped from his temple. Though he still sat straighter, the light of recognition still flickering in his eyes. "Mr. Henderson, do you wish to reconsider your closing remarks, or perhaps your sentencing recommendation, in light of this development?" Henderson, for once, seemed at a loss for words. He stammered, "Well, Your Honor, the people still maintain that laws were broken, but perhaps—" He trailed off, visibly deflated. Sarah seized the moment. "Your Honor," she said, her voice clear and stronger now, infused with a new hope. "General Finch's presence speaks volumes. It speaks to the character of the man before you, a man who served this country with honor and distinction. A man who, yes, has fallen on hard times, largely as a result of that service. The trespass, the alleged resistance. These were not acts of malice, but symptoms of a deeper struggle, a struggle that men like Corporal Washington often face alone when they return from the horrors of war. She continued, "We are not asking for him to be excused from the law, but for the law to be applied with compassion and understanding of the full context. What Corporal Washington needs is not incarceration, but support. Access to the VA resources he's entitled to, treatment for his PTSD, a path back to the society he defended." Judge Vance listened intently. She looked at Mac, then at General Finch, who still stood at attention, a silent, powerful sentinel. The courtroom remained hushed, everyone present seemingly aware they were witnessing something extraordinary. After a long pause, Judge Vance spoke. "Corporal Washington," she began, her voice unexpectedly gentle, "please rise." Mac, with Sarah's quiet encouragement, pushed himself to his feet. He stood a little taller now, the salute having seemingly infused him with a sliver of his old self. "Corporal Washington," Judge Vance continued, "I have heard the evidence presented. I have heard your counsel, and I have witnessed an extraordinary display of brotherhood and respect." She paused, looking directly at him. "Your service to this country is noted and deeply appreciated. It is clear that your current circumstances are, in no small part, a consequence of that service and the invisible wounds you carry." She glanced at Henderson. Given the circumstances, and with the implicit understanding that resources will be made available to assist Corporal Washington, she looked pointedly at General Finch, who gave a very slight, affirmative nod. "This court finds that further incarceration would serve no just purpose." A collective sigh, almost inaudible, swept through the courtroom. Sarah gripped Mac's arm. "On the charge of aggravated trespassing," Judge Vance announced, "I find you guilty, but I am sentencing you to time served. On the charge of resisting arrest, given the mitigating circumstances of your documented PTSD and the nature of the encounter, I am dismissing the charge." Mac swayed slightly. Sarah's grip tightened, supporting him. "However, Corporal Washington," the judge continued, her tone firm but not unkind, "this leniency comes with conditions. You are to report to the Veterans Affairs Liaison Office within 24 hours. General Finch," she addressed him directly, "I trust you or your office will facilitate this and ensure he receives the comprehensive support he so clearly needs and deserves." "You have my word, Your Honor," General Finch replied, his voice unwavering. "We will take care of our Marine." "Court is adjourned," Judge Vance declared, banging her gavel with a finality that felt less like a judgment and more like a release. As people began to stir and file out, General Finch moved past the bar and approached Mac. Sarah stepped back, giving them space. The general didn't offer a handshake, nor did he offer platitudes. He simply looked Mac in the eye. "Corporal Washington," he said, his voice softer now, for Mac's ears alone. "It's been a long road home. Let's get you properly squared away." Mac could only nod, fresh tears streaming. The words wouldn't come, but in his eyes, a spark ignited, a glimmer of the man he once was, a promise of the man he could still become. Sarah watched them, General Finch's hand now resting lightly on Mac's shoulder, guiding him towards the exit. She saw a couple of younger veterans in the gallery, also in civilian clothes but with the unmistakable bearing of servicemen, rise and nod respectfully as the general and Mac passed. They were likely part of the network that had brought Mac's plight to the general's attention. Outside the courtroom, the air felt fresher, lighter. General Finch spoke quietly into his phone, and within minutes, a black staff car pulled up. "There's a place for you at the Vets Transition Center, Mac," the general said, using his nickname with easy familiarity. "Good chow, clean bunk, doctors who understand. First step." Mac paused at the car door, then turned to face the general. His voice was raspy from disuse, thick with emotion. "General, why? Why me?" General Finch looked out over the city for a moment, then met Mac's gaze. "Because no Marine is ever truly homeless when they have brothers, Corporal, and because some salutes need to be seen by the world, not just felt in the heart. Now, get in the car. It's time to come home." As Marcus Mack, Washington slid into the car, leaving behind the courthouse, the streets, the crushing weight of despair. He knew one thing for certain. That silent salute hadn't just changed the course of a trial. It had given him back a piece of his soul. The fight wasn't over, not by a long shot. But for the first time in years, Corporal Marcus Washington wasn't fighting alone. He was a Marine, and the Corps had remembered him.